discrimination, misogyny, stalker, parasocial relationships, losing your identity, just a lot of themes, and I think Satoshi Kon ties them in very well, and I also think for its time, it is amazing. I think the commentary it was making was perfect, and especially in a time where, I guess when this film takes place, the internet and the internet culture being incorporated into fan culture was starting to become a thing. So we see how it can really shape parasocial relationships that people have with artists. But yeah, and it was very dark. I will give a warning about that. It's pretty dark. But yet again, I do think it is an amazing film. The animation is pretty great, and the soundtrack is perfect. I think there are times where it's eerie, and this is a great film that sometimes makes you question what is real and what is fake, what is reality, what is the reality we live in. But, yeah, also, there is really good foreshadowing in this. Like, once the big reveal comes, you're like, wait, all of this other stuff was foreshadowing. But yeah, it is a solid 4.5 stars out of 5 for me. Okay, the next one, I'm gonna keep the review pretty short, but forgive me for that. Okay, so this film, I wanted to see it because I saw a lot of reviews from film festivals and people really enjoyed it. And it is also a release that came out this year, and it is called Roofman, and it stars Channing Tatum, Kirsten Dunst, and what's his name? Lakeith Stanfield. So these are at least like some of the actors I was familiar with off the bat. Like I've seen other work with them. But this is a film based on a true story of a man who is known as, I guess, the Roof Man. He, in North Carolina, was like robbing fast food chains, but he would do it through the roof, and he ended up getting prison time. But the thing is that he escapes prison and ends up hiding in a Toys R Us. So that is pretty interesting, and Channing Tatum plays this guy who escaped prison. And, I personally was surprised by the acting from Channing Tatum. I think I'm so used to seeing Channing Tatum in, like, comedies, like, strictly comedies. So seeing him in something that's a little more serious, but also still has, like, funny elements was nice to see. And, it's refreshing to see that performance from him. I think he should be in more work like this. He really is a great actor, and it shouldn't be overlooked. And, I mean, like I said, this is a film about, like, based on a true story, so you could certainly tell, or at least assume they, like, had some artistic liberties with the source material they're working off. And yeah, I thought it was a solid 3.5 stars out of 5. And one thing I really did enjoy is the use of archival footage at the end of, like, the real events that actually took place. Sorry, I think it's always nice, but yeah. Okay, and the next film is actually an animated film. I watched it. Okay, sorry for this cut. I had a little interruption, but this film is another animation film, and it is a French film based off a Japanese manga. And, words to describe it. It's pretty insane, but not in a bad way. It's like in a good, funny way. It's very campy. The editing is fun. The names of the characters are also so iconic. I mean, one of the characters is called Fantasy, the other one is Mac, Kung Fu, Professor, Melody. Yeah, they all have like very interesting names, but it's these girls basically going on vacation to their friends on South Place, and strange events occur in this house, and the girls are being picked apart one by one. But it's very funny, you know. I think it's only if you do drink, you should have like a couple drinks and watch this with a couple friends, because it's pretty funny and the film is pretty short. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes, so I recommend it. I mean, I give it a solid 4 out of 5 just because it's entertaining. I mean, what is good? I don't know, but it's fun. It's fun. It's something refreshing. But okay, the next film is a bit more serious. This film was directed by Harris Dickinson. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but he's an actor. He was in Baby Girl, which starred Nicole Kidman, Triangle of Sadness, the second Maleficent movie, Scraper, and a bunch of other work. But I've seen a lot of his work, and hearing that he was gonna have a directorial debut, I wanted to watch this film back home. I'm originally from like LA County, so if you know, there's a lot of movie events there all the time. And he did a Q&A, which, because I was here in school, I couldn't go, but my older sister went. But anywho, I saw the film, and this film focuses on, I think his name is Mike. No, yeah, Mike, who is a homeless man who is struggling with addiction, and basically, because he's homeless, he needs money and food, and one day he, jumps a man, and he gets arrested, and the story follows that, and we see him navigate life, how to re-enter society, how hard it is for somebody, especially when you've been homeless for a while, how to, try to find a job, the struggles with actually trying to find a place to live, if you don't have a secure housing situation, how could you focus and work? And also, you were sober for a bit, but now you're integrated back into society, so how do you stay sober? And these are some serious questions that I think the film grapples with. Urchin, I don't even dangerous because it turns out that this cop was killed by one of their own. So yeah, and basically ends up having to go to like the Amish countryside in Pennsylvania. I think it was Pennsylvania, to to hide out because he's in danger now, and also this little boy might be in danger, because it's like some serious shit. So it's basically that, and I don't really have an issue with the story, but I just didn't like how they at times felt like two very different stories. Like they didn't seem to mesh well together, if that makes sense. And I don't know. I personally thought there's also like a romantic aspect to this because, you know, the detective is taking care of this little Amish boy, and he has a mom. Like I said, it's between like a recent widow, so there is gonna be some romantic tension. And if I'm being quite honest, I'm gonna be blatantly honest, there was a lot of sexual tension, like blatant sexual tension. And spoilers, it goes nowhere. And I was like, what? Also, the ending felt very rushed, and it just didn't feel like it was written well enough. That's just my opinion. But yeah. And, this is gonna be the last thing I review. And this one was something I was also really looking forward to seeing. It is a new release, and it is directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, who is a Greek director. And this is, I think, the third thing I've ever seen by him in theaters. I've seen 4 of his work, but 3 in theaters. And the things I've seen are Lobster, Poor Things, Kinds of Kindness, and now this one, Bugonia. The movie is called Bugonia, and the premise is a man, these 2 conspiracy theorists kidnap a CEO because they are convinced she is an alien and they need to save Earth, which is insane. But considering the other pieces by Yorgos that I have seen, I don't necessarily think this one is the craziest, to say the least. But the cast is Emma Stone, and I'm pretty sure, what's his name, Jesse Plemons. And I had actually seen like the last thing they were together in, which was Kinds of Kindness, and in that Jesse Plemons gets really high regard. Like people praise him a lot for his performance, and I'm not saying I thought his performance in Kinds of Kindness was bad, but I necessarily do not think it is his best work. And I think Bugonia is definitely his best work because he plays the conspiracy theorist, the guy, I guess you could see the brains behind this idea. He plays a very disturbing character, somebody who's very disturbed, and there are moments where he like loses himself and does some crazy stuff that you're just like in shock and unsettled, and his mannerisms, the way his character breaks down, it truly is, I think, his best performance. And Emma Stone, I think, is very funny. Or not funny, I mean, the situation is serious and it certainly does get disturbing, but because she is a CEO, there is times where she's interacting with these conspiracy theorists where she's just like talking like a corporate CEO would, and it's kind of funny at times. But yeah, this might not be for everybody because people, like I said, it is disturbing and there is some levels of violence that people will not be comfortable with, or they might get disappointed at the ending, which I will not spoil, even though I want to. But yeah, and you know, after I watched it, I called my boyfriend actually, and I was talking to him about it, and he said something that that stuck with me, and he said, you know, there are forces at play that determine the lives of people, and they're not necessarily aliens, but sometimes they're not 100% human either. You know, there are large this, but I figured if I don't record now, I am never gonna record this video, and I absolutely